Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Our topic today is onboarding. This is Pat Sherlock. For those that are new to our webinar series, I certainly appreciate you joining us. I'm going to be sharing my company's research and our best practices from our clients in mortgage banking. QFS helps managers by solving their sales problems from high turnover and low productivity. Our assessments and training programs are science-based, which separates us from our competition. Today we're going to talk about what works on the onboarding new sales employees. I know you're busy, and so I'm sharing what really matters on this issue for improving sales results. Any questions should go through the chat feature on the right-hand side of GoToWebinar. I will attempt to answer as many questions as possible, and you certainly can always email me. I'd love to hear from you. So let's talk about the onboarding and what is effective. Have you ever experienced this? The recruiting took months to land a great producer, but finally the individual says yes, and once the originator has committed to a company and the manager stops selling the new person on why they made a good decision by joining your company. This may have happened to you. I know in my own corporate career, I have experienced this. They recruit you, and then when you get there, they ignore you. So what happens? The new employee does not connect with the new company, and before you know it, they leave to go to their previous company or someone else. Certainly, recruiting is very difficult to do today with everyone chasing after originators. So not to onboard well can really be fatal. And before you know it, the new person is not happy. Their expectations are not matched with what they thought the new company was about. Doubts surface, and then certainly they keep asking themselves, did they make the right decision? So first impressions that a new employee has that sets the stage and tone for engagement that will have the bottom line is your onboarding is your most critical to retaining the originator. Too often with onboarding, the new employee is left to figure things out, the famous sink or swim managing approach. The problem is, if there is an effective onboarding process, newly hired salespeople are really left to figure out on their own what is your corporate values and what is acceptable behavior, including what is your value proposition that you bring to the marketplace. So is it any surprise that turnover occurs when onboarding is just defined as learning how to use the computer system? Onboarding is a fundamental part of an effective retention strategy for your originators. Before designing any onboard program, managers really need to ask 4 important questions on what they want to accomplish in their onboarding process, and starting with, what is the end game? The end game should be ramping to goal quickly. How long should that take? Spotting hiring mistakes. What does your success map look like, and how to get off on the right foot? In my view, too many companies define onboarding as showing the computer system, and that is really the wrong approach because it doesn't engage the new hire about what it takes to be successful at their new company, and it does not emotionally tie them to your sales team. It does not emotionally tie them to your sales team. Let me repeat that because that's really what the issue is. The better way is to see onboarding process as the opportunity to resell your company's culture and strategy. Again, the better way is to see onboarding as a process as an opportunity to resell your company's culture and strategy. And really, for you to answer the question is, why should they stay? The 5 steps for an effective onboarding program should include, first, what is your sales success strategy that needs to be conveyed to the new employee? Second, define a set of activities that drive the right selling behaviors at your company. Third, establish a set of learning requirements, and I'll talk about more on that in a second. Fourth, create a fast start mentoring program. And fifth, having a performance management structure. Now let's look at, first off, the sales success strategy. A company needs to start and really the new employee so they understand clearly their strategy. Not every mortgage company is the same. Just thinking that the new hire should understand what their role is to get more loans doesn't really address how the new company operates. There should also be a written documentation detailing your sales process that matches to your current selling approach. Too often what companies have are old processes that aren't really what they're doing today. What's your lead strategy? Are you giving leads from your branches if you're a bank? Are you giving leads from your servicing? Are the originators all expect to self-source their business on their own? Again, this has changed for sure at many companies, and as we move into a purchase money marketplace, it definitely is different than what it has been in the past. Every company also has a set of tools that reinforces the company's value proposition. If you don't have a value proposition, you really need to define that as soon as possible, so your employees, your new hires in particular, know basically what you're about. Finally, what will the new employee be measured on? Volume is not a leading indicator, as all managers know, and it is actually a very poor measuring point. Managers should always be managing to activities because volume follows after a set of activities are completed. Managers, again, too often just wait to see what the volume numbers are. Volume numbers need to be, again, a reflection of what activities happened before that. And I'll talk about that more in a second. The second part of a good onboarding process is too often what I see is that new employees are given way too long to show results. Some managers even will say that the originator needs 6 to 12 months to deliver their results. I tell my clients to monitor prospecting activities right away. Again, let me repeat that. I tell my clients to monitor prospecting activities right away. The manager should expect a certain number of prospecting activities to occur. If not, Houston, there's a problem. When a manager does not see prospecting activities occurring, it also says that the hiring process obviously did not work. Again, the role of the originator is to bring new business to the lender and not to be an order taker. And so activities performed are very important and are very early indicators if the originator will be successful at their new company. The third part of an effective onboarding system and process is the learning requirement. Onboarding should really include learning requirements, not just the history of the company on how your sales technology works. Putting information on the company's intranet to explain all of that is certainly a good step in the right direction. The information that's listed on this slide is just really the basics. The second part of a learning requirement is how will the employee develop their own selling skills. The truth is the buying process has definitely changed. And why should self-development be part of an onboarding process and really discussed in the beginning with the new hire? Today, it's a given that selling is really changing daily. Having the discussion in the early stages of a new employee's employment really is an indicator on the originator's willingness to adapt to what is required, and especially today with regulations and a variety of other impacts that we are having in our industry. What I would call learning agility is the requirement for being successful. All top originators are constantly looking for the new thing, the new issue that will make a difference in their production. They are, by definition, learning agile. And from a sales training standpoint, top originators are always the most fun from a training perspective because they are certainly ones that will go back and apply what they have learned to their new endeavor of whatever is being driven by the marketplace. All originators really should follow top originators in this approach. As a manager, it's your role to instill a positive environment based on learning. So one of your conversations after the new person has joined you is discussing a personalized learning plan. Yes, I said a personalized learning plan. Even if the person has been in mortgage banking for 20, 25 years and is considered very experienced, that does not mean that their selling techniques match with what is required today. One of our assessments, which I'll show you in a second, is really all about measuring the needs of the individual and really is an easy way for the manager to have a discussion with the originator on what needs to be worked on and what needs to be basically part of that individual person's training. Training that is a mass approach, has been mentioned in many different podcasts that we have done, is really not effective because it's not personalized to what that individual's learning needs are. So again, if a new originator refuses to learn a new skill, that is very much an early sign that the person will not be successful in our current competitive marketplace. So the fourth part of an effective onboarding process is really all about the role of coaching and mentoring that should play in it. When new employees join a company, another great way is to assign experienced originators that have been at your firm to help them. Again, we're not talking about experienced originators per se. We're talking about people that are experienced at your firm because they know the lay of the land for sure. Even when you look at the NFL, this is how they handle their rookies that are new to their league and team. The recently drafted gets paired with a veteran of that particular team. We can learn a lot in mortgage banking on doing the same thing. So as soon as possible, the manager needs to do a ride-along also with the new employee. This is a step that I see many managers really delaying, waiting for the individual at some other point. And they really, as a result, by delaying this activity, they don't understand what actually is the current person's selling skills. It'd be great if during a hiring and interviewing sequence that you could actually do a sales call with these individuals, but as we all know, that's not going to happen. So the earlier that you see what the new employee does during a sales call, the better off you are. And in my view, that should be a top priority for the manager when they have new people joining their team. When you delay on this, I think that is a big mistake. And finally, the fifth part of an effective onboarding process is all about performance management. The role of the sales manager is obviously critical with the new hire. Are you tracking the selling activities? Do you have standards for what they should be? Too often what I see is that there are no standards and that we keep looking at the month-end volume numbers. Well, that really is not a good indicator, as already mentioned. Volume numbers are what we would call a not leading indicator. Prospecting activities are an indicator that needs to be monitored very closely. If you do not measure the activities, it's very hard for you to reward for the wins that the individual is having. Again, during this onboarding process, which would be by definition the first 90 days the new person is with you, it's very important that you understand and convey to that individual really what it is that it takes to be successful at your company. And performance management really needs to be a key part of the onboarding. Too often what I see is managers really kind of say, well, the person needs 6 months, we're really not sure. All of those things really are delaying what you need to do as a manager, which is to look at where is that person in as far as emotionally attaching to your company and to your culture and to your sales process. So today's takeaway is the first 90 days of a new employee should be well designed to help the employee buy into your culture and your strategy. Developing an effective onboarding process is critical to retaining your new employees with you. Let's open up for any questions that you might have. So go on the right-hand section of the GoToWebinar and use the chat feature to ask any questions. I'd be glad to answer. We have a question from Bill, and he's asking, if someone, in other words, leaves within this 90-day period, what is that telling you about the hiring side? Well, that's a great question, Bill, and it's a two-pronged issue from what I see when looking at sales staffs. The first part of it is that if someone, in other words, has not done these activities that I've already discussed or have not shown, again, activities that would indicate that they are matching to your sales process, whatever that might be, the early sign of someone who's not matching to your sales process, if all they talk about is what basically their experience was at a previous company. That is certainly not a good sign. So the reality of it is, in the first 90 days, it's either the issue of the hiring interview process really was not effective, and likewise, the other issue is that for whatever reason, that individual wants your company's process to look like the previous company's process, and that is something that is really not a good indicator because your company's process fits to your strategy and culture. Great question, Bill. So it's a two-pronged issue. Certainly, one of the things I would talk about is that, and mention, is the hiring side of it, where these types of questions really delved into to ensure that the individual really understood what the process is. Again, because of the pressure of recruiting, many times managers don't have those types of discussions, and they really need to do it. And likewise, the second part is that, again, let's assume that you've done the right interviewing component, the person joins you, and then certainly what ends up happening, you end up seeing that they're not wanting to, in other words, adapt to your culture. They're not wanting to adapt to your sales process. That, again, would be an indicator, from my viewpoint, of someone that should be addressed as soon as possible, because that is not a situation that's going to improve itself unless you get that addressed head on. So, great question, Bill. For those that are interested during the sales rallies to have more discussions on these topics, certainly let me know. I do a lot of presentations on these particular topics. And for resources, again, we have a sales blog that you can sign up with on the www.patsherlock.com. Certainly love to hear you sign up for it. I would love to also hear from you from the LinkedIn part of it.